On today's episode of the Coping Hour, we do a college football recap, do a little Heisman preview, who's in the mix, who's not in the mix, the return of Knicks Pistons, the return of Mad Online. I teach you guys how to deal with witching hour losses, and we recap it all with some Starfield talk. Stick around. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening. Folks, thank you very, very much for listening. Date today is the 20th of November, year of our Lord 2023. Welcome to yet another edition of the Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle. We got a jam-packed show for you today, I hope, at least. I only say that because I never know. I never actually know. I just start recording, and then the file becomes the file. And then at the end of it, I either go, nice long episode for the people, or I go, that could have been a little bit longer. Let's try to aim for a little bit longer today. And I tell you what, we might have some good material. As somebody who has said some not nice things about college football this year, even though I've only had one chance to do it on this show, I've been consistent all year that it's been kind of lackluster. Teams aren't losing, like important or fun teams aren't really losing that much. Like I didn't want to see James Madison lose, believe it or not, NCAA. But if nothing else, this Heisman race has gripped me and compelled me in ways that it has not in previous years, and I'm having a lot of fun. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here today monitoring it and talking about what happened this last Saturday in what was, one of the last weekends for a lot of these dudes to make their case to us. You look at a guy like Jaden Daniels, he doesn't get an SEC championship game. Marvin Harrison Jr. might get a Big Ten championship game, still have to beat Michigan. We'll talk about that. Bo Nix and Michael Penix looking down the barrel of that face-off, that showdown between those two schools. So Jaden Daniels, he's got to try to squeeze as much yardage, as many touchdowns out of these last two games as he possibly can. And boy, did he. We got to talk about Bo Nix first, just because he played first. So let's just be fair, right? Bo Nix goes out against Arizona State. And if anything's been consistent about this team all season, it's how hard they play and how good they are about firing on all cylinders for 4 quarters and playing at 100 miles an hour. Because you'll get the same amount of effort that you got against Arizona State as you'll get against Washington or like Portland State. You know what I mean? That's how you win 81-7. Bo Nix goes out and throws 6 touchdowns in the first half against Arizona State. Ties a single game school record. Only gets 1 drive in the second half. Oregon doesn't do anything with the football. I think they punt it away. And then Bo's out for the rest of the game. Up to 35 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the season. Also officially number 1 all-time in single-season completion percentage in NCAA history. He's above guys like Mac Jones, Colt McCoy, Joe Burrow, and J.J. McCarthy. Most interesting thing there is that really, so 4 of the top 5 highest completion percentages in a single season are from the last 4 years. Bo Nix, Mac Jones, Joe Burrow, J.J. McCarthy. Only Colt McCoy is the only pre-2019 guy. That feels kind of bizarre. Bo Nix puts that up in the first half just in time for Jaden Daniels to be lining up against Georgia State, a team that had let up 40-plus points in 3 straight games. And what did he do? A week after totaling, over 600 yards on offense, Jaden Daniels against Georgia State goes 25 of 30 for 413 yards and 6 touchdowns through the air. 10 carries, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Huh? Huh? Is Jaden Daniels making this a thing? And by the way, as of this morning, as of Sunday morning even, betting favorite Jaden Daniels surpassing Bo Nix. So the odd man out here was who? It's kind of Michael Penix. And Marvin Harrison, if we're being honest. He only had 3 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. Oh no, he was kind of human for a game. We'll talk about Marvin in a second. Michael Penix goes 13 to 28, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He wasn't bad. He had like 1 bad stretch where he didn't complete a pass for I think 8 straight attempts or something. Most people would argue that was probably because of the weather, because of the elements, because of the circumstances. Nobody could really get a good grip on that football. It was definitely just hand the ball to Dylan Johnson, who was the running back for Oregon State. I don't remember his name. Hand the ball to Dylan Johnson. Guys probably won't be able to tackle him anyways, right? And if the ball hits the deck, it hits the deck, and we just we jump on it. It was a lot of that in that game. It was a really fun game. We haven't had one of those torrential downpour, consequential games for all intents and purposes called a top 10 matchup. Basically, is borderline. Haven't had one of those in a while in an atmosphere like that. It was an awesome game, and I'm not mad at Michael Penix for kind of like, I like to make fun of him, and I like to make fun of Washington for their Arizona State game. It's funny, as much as I like to bring up Washington almost losing to Arizona State, what I don't like to bring up that much, conveniently, is Oregon almost losing to Texas Tech. I did do it last week on this show, but it was very big of me to do that because it was one of the first times that I acknowledged that Oregon kind of almost lost this year to a team that they should not have lost. Like the Washington losses. Well, Washington's a really good team. I'm not embarrassed by that. And I think if and when they get the chance to line it up again, I think Oregon wins. Based on what we've seen these last few weeks and how each team has carried on from that game in their respective seasons, Oregon looks like the better team, right? The Heisman's going to come down to the Pac-12 championship. I really think it will, because ultimately that is just who's the best player on the best team. And I know Jaden Daniels is a spectacle. He's a spectacle. He's must-watch football, 100%. But we're talking about two teams who are competing for a national championship, the quarterbacks of those teams. And that's the only reason you don't put Marvin Harrison in here, right? Maserati Marv. It's the only reason that you leave him out. And there's the whole, if you want to be, a dickhead about it, it's like, well, it's not a wide receiver award. It's like, yeah, it's not. But what if against Michigan, if we're talking about the best player on the best team, what if Marvin Harrison Jr. goes out against Michigan, puts up 7 receptions for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns? What then? Because these 4 players, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jaden Daniels, are all getting invited to New York. All 4 of them are going to get invited. But what happens against Michigan, as far as Marvin is concerned, is so detrimental to what because I don't know. I honestly think even if he does that, best case, he ends up 3rd. I just really think the 3 quarterbacks that we have right now are historically good in college, right? It's going to be interesting because you also, I don't know, because I'm leaving out a crucial piece of the Marvin Harrison story here. Beating Michigan would send them on to Iowa. If we talk about Bo Nix and Michael Penix getting that extra game, Jaden Daniels not getting that extra game, well, Ohio State's going to beat Iowa. And the only way they would do that is if they kill that Iowa defense. How do you kill that Iowa defense? A heavy dose of Travion Henderson and Marvin Harrison Jr. probably going to get the job done. Probably. So then if we're just using my logic here, if we're pitting Marvin Harrison Jr., who would then be, if you beat Michigan and win the Big Ten championship, you would have to be considered the best team, one of the best teams in college football, right? Even if we don't really believe it with Kyle McCord, they still would be. And then whoever comes out of the Pac-12, whoever wins that dogfight, Michael Penix or Bo Nix, if we're putting them against each other, I'm taking the guy in the Pac-12. I'm taking the team in the Pac-12 in the playoff too, by the way. Because if Ohio State gets in a track meet with either of those teams, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Ohio State does not want to do that. This isn't like your grandpa's Ohio State Buckeyes, even from 5 years ago or 2 years ago. You know what I mean? You put Ohio State against Georgia with how Georgia's been playing the last 8 weeks. I don't know. Notre Dame game wasn't that convincing. The Penn State game, how many of us left that game going oh yeah, Ohio State was the better team for sure. The quarterback play in that game and an Ohio State-Penn State game was generationally bad. I asked last week, is Ohio State-Michigan going to be a track meet? I really don't think so. I really don't think so. And I really don't want it to be, and I hope the weather is horrible also, by the way. I don't know what it's supposed to look like right now, but I hope the weather is horrible. Who's going to win the Heisman? I think it's going to be Penix. I still want it to be Bo, but I think it's going to be Penix. Let's talk about more football. This might be kind of shocking. I don't have that many Lions notes, honestly, for what ended up being an electric victory, improving to 8-2, best record Detroit has had since 1962. 17 points in the final 3 minutes and change is what it ended up being, I think. I don't have that much to say Because honestly, I had already rationalized it in my head. Like, as soon as that game started, I was like, we're not losing to the Packers on Thursday. Like, I'm calling my shit. We're not losing, but we might lose to the Bears. Because whether it's the Bears or whether it's the Vikings, we are going to drop a stupid division game this year. And I honestly was thinking it was going to be the Vikings. But if it was going to happen there in that moment against the Bears, then I was going to be like, all right, like, hey, it happens. Like any given Sunday, right? Any given Sunday. It also doesn't help when your quarterback has the worst game that he's had since he got traded to your team. You know, for 95% of that game, Jared Goff was like the worst. Well, not 95%. Out of that entire game, he was great for 4 drives and bad for all of the other ones. But here's the thing is there wasn't that many other drives because he would throw a pick and then Chicago would chew 9 minutes off the clock. You know, and that was kind of the story. We talk about the Pistons, how it's like one of the big stories is that the free throw disparities, right? If we could just get to the line, some of these games, we might actually have a chance. We might actually win. The Lions just could not get on the field. And then they couldn't stay on the field because Jared Goff just kept throwing interceptions. It's an awesome win, though, right? I think you got a little bit out of everybody at some point. Jahmyr Gibbs had a few big catches, that really crucial one at the end when we were driving down the field, a couple minutes left on the clock, and he made a really concerted effort to cross field. I think he caught the ball literally in the middle of the field, ran to the opposite sideline, and got out of bounds, stopped the clock. David Montgomery scoring the game-winning touchdown against his former team. Like, awesome, man. It felt awesome. Amon-Ra did not get to crack 100 yards this week. Devastated on his behalf, but really excited to tune into him and his brother's podcast because sneaky, I think it might be the best brother podcast in sports right now. This next segment's going to be a little bit weird. I need to set it up just a little bit. I don't like to do the live reaction stuff anymore, but I watched a game on Saturday that I was just in love with this game. I was head over heels for this game. Along came Polly for this game. You know what I mean? And I'm just going to let it play. I don't think this is going to be a regular thing. But if you like it, you like it. If you as soon as you hear what game I'm talking about, you might just skip ahead. It's only like 2.5 minutes. I'll let you guys check it out. Let me start with this. I'm never going to do this in the future, I don't think. I really don't like to do the live reaction after watching a game when you don't have the context of the entire day in front of you. But I got to tell you something. I just watched this Harvard-Yale game, and I'm kind of losing my mind because for a weekend that didn't have a ton of games that I was interested in, this kind of caught my eye. I'm looking at the stakes of this, and I'm seeing a Harvard team that's 8-1, nationally ranked, number 19 in the country. All they have to do is win the game, and they win the Ivy League outright. Yale's coming into this game thinking, well, if we knock off Harvard, we get a piece of the title. You know, outside of this game, you have Dartmouth playing, I think, Brown. If they win, it's a 3-way tie. Assuming Yale also wins, it's a 3-way tie for the Ivy League title. So let's talk a little bit about this game. It's a fucking knife fight for the first half. Yale goes out, blocks 2 punts and an extra point. They go into the half up 10-6. Fast forward a little bit. Both teams are kind of moving the ball a little bit, some big plays here and there. Yale is driving the football. They're in their red zone. Quarterback gets his arm hit. It's a pick. Still 7 and change left, but it felt like a pretty crucial blow. All Harvard really has to do up one is milk as much of this clock as they can. Maybe they can even punch one in, get a field goal, whatever it is. First play out, backed up inside their own 20. Harvard fumbles the ball. First play, it's a turnover. Going back to Yale. Yale, like 2 plays later, throws one up in the back corner of the end zone. Great catch. Great ball. Yale's up. Fast forward a little bit more. That was it. Essentially, that was it. That was the game. Harvard has the ball last. They get sacked. It kind of takes them out of range. They get down to like their 30-yard line, but that was all she wrote. Yale forces a turnover on downs. It's a fucking knife fight in the Ivy League. Why did nobody tell me about the Ivy League? Oh, and by the way, that Dartmouth game I was talking about, they won too. It's a 3-way split for the Ivy League title. Unreal. I love watching these sort of medium games that while it doesn't feel like they have these national stakes, it was pandemonium in New Haven. And it's so crazy to think that, like, it's just going to sound so dumb, but I love that, you know, we fixate on these games like Washington, Oregon State, like, man, what is that atmosphere going to be like? You talk about like Clemson, North Carolina, like probably a great atmosphere. But in New Haven, Connecticut, between Yale and Harvard, if you can believe it, it was maybe the most electric atmosphere in one of the more consequential games for 2 and 3 teams that extended beyond the game itself. I just needed to, go back and watch the highlights of that game. Boy, was it a fun one. Yale knocks off Harvard. It's a 3-way tie. Dartmouth, Harvard, Yale, Ivy League champs. Really fun NFL email here. And this is actually the first time that we've gotten an email from a witching hour victim. So here we go from Marco. Nick, the Steelers just lost on a last-second field goal to the Browns. The witching hour has claimed another victim. How do I recover? Do you have a regiment? This usually ruins my entire week. Please help me, Marco. All right, dude. Stick in there, soldier, because I'm going to get you through this. First of all, super relatable that this ruins your entire week. I think that's most of us. Me, personally, I kind of do have a regiment. If the Lions would have lost that game to the Bears, even though I talked about how, it wasn't going to bother me that much, like I was kind of expecting one of those dumb losses to happen, I still would have seen the memes, and that still would have pissed me off. I still would have had to have listened to my favorite podcasts talk about that game. I mean, I would have honestly just skipped those parts, but I still would have known that they were watching, and that would have bothered me. I would still have to see all these national pundits talking about the game. You get what I'm saying? So, like, it kind of kills your week from a media consumption standpoint, and that's why this week it would have been lucky for the Lions because they're on a short week against Green Bay. So they would have kind of just been able to get out of the way because, again, they are not losing that game. They're not losing on Thanksgiving to the Green Bay Packers. Absolutely not. But it will, like, seriously demotivate me for a few days. So I'm with you there. How about this Pittsburgh Steelers team, though? I don't understand how they're good at all. At all. It's just a testament to Mike Tomlin's ability to field and coach a competitive team. Like, seriously, he's insane. He's wild. Because Kenny Pickett, I don't have a problem with him, but I'm just kind of like, when is this going to end? Like, you're not going to be the quarterback in like 3 years, Like, so what, like, he's like a young bridge quarterback. It's weird. Like, he's just quarterbacking the Steelers in the meantime. Until when? I don't really know because they're never, I guess, going to be bad enough to get, am I telegraphing this in real time? Maybe this will cheer you up, dude. I don't know. We keep talking about Michael Penix like he's going in the second round, which, by the way, is insane to me. Again, is crazy to me. He should be going in the first round. But do the Steelers, does Mike Tomlin scoop up Michael Penix? Out goes Kenny Pickett. Steelers back up. It could happen. I hope this is doing something for you, dude. I have no idea how they're good. That Jaylen Warren run was cool. And I'm not shaming a loss to the Browns, by the way. Good teams lose to the Browns. The Ravens just did it a week ago. In like kind of like heart-wrenching, the Ravens got their heart ripped out of their chest fashion. That video of Stavros, obviously he was kind of doing a bit, but that's what losing to Deshaun Watson does to somebody. Only this week the Steelers lost to DTR? What? Huh? And I gotta say, David Njoku, there is not a more prime candidate for like, I just wish he was somewhere else because he's so good. He's so good. I just wish he was anywhere else, catching passes from any other quarterback. I really do. And I'm sorry, Browns fans. Because, like, I guess you technically deserve him. Like, yeah, he's awesome, but I just wish he was somewhere else. I don't know, Dallas? I can't believe I just said that. That's disgusting. That's crazy. I need to end this segment. Marco, hang in there, brother. Michael Penix is on the way. Dallas Mavericks email coming in from Caleb. Nick, if you've been watching any Mavericks games, I would love to hear whether or not you think what they are doing can continue to develop as Derek Lively grows and the rest of the team can somewhat put together a decent defensive scheme. And then parenthetically, he wrote, as well as a possible trade before the deadline. and where you think that would lead in the playoffs, or if you think it's similar to last year's Kings, just a high-powered offense that won't be able to defend in the playoffs. How about those Sacramento Kings lately? De'Aaron Fox with the, 43, 7, and 8 game? Keegan Murray, like, is he Kawhi? Is that what his career is going to end up being like? Man, they've been really fun to watch. Thank you for the email, Caleb. If I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan right now, am I a little bit pissed off that I don't have Rick Carlisle right now? I'm kind of being funny, kind of being serious here. Because if there was ever a time to be a student of the Rick Carlisle school of, I don't give a shit if we suck on defense, we're going to have the best offense in the league. Who cares? We're going to score so many points like they're trying to do in Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton right now. You could kind of use that right now because the Mavs don't want to play defense. I don't know if it's an effort thing. I always have a hard time. We kind of talked about it with the Pistons just a second ago. I always have a hard time being the grown man who's sitting at home in his apartment being like, these professional athletes aren't trying. That's crazy. That's crazy. But even Grant Williams was like, I don't think we're trying very hard. And he tries pretty hard, you know? If there was a power rankings of like, this guy is giving everything he has on the Mavericks. Defensively, Dwight Powell, whether you want to admit it or not, I know people don't like him. I always will. Motown No All-Star. He's up there. He's trying really hard. Derek Lively is like a 19-year-old. He is probably their best rim protector right now. Jason Kidd had the quote last night where after Lively got his shit worked by Domantas Sabonis, which no shame in that, by the way. We talked about him last week. He's a bucket. He's one of the toughest dudes to guard in the league. No shame, dude. Jason Kidd was like, I got the quote right here. He's just young. He's got to go through it. This is the NBA. It's not college. He's got to go through it. The more minutes that he's on the floor, he'll get better. Not today, but in a couple months, he'll understand what he has to do. He's giving everything that he has. We've got to continue to stay positive, and he's going to get better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. He's right. That's one of the. It's been a long time since I've read a Jason Kidd quote and been like, yeah, like, good take. But that's a good take. He's been fun to watch, though, dude. If they want to be for real about this, I don't know. If I'm a Mavericks fan, it's like, we have that Josh Green chip. He's on a contract that, like, is a little bit easier to move. You know? Do we still believe in that? Are we still doing that after how he's playing this year? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Hey, if we still believe it, we still believe it. I'm there. I'm there with you. But if we don't, and we want to move him and, like, stuff to Toronto, if I can get a little Pascal Siakam, if I can get a little OG Anunoby, especially maybe OG, because at the trade deadline last year, he had to have been the biggest, like, really? Like, really? You didn't get moved? Huh. If I was Toronto, at the time, I was just thinking, I don't know, if I can get another first-round pick in this year's draft, meaning the Victor Wembanyama draft, which was a pretty consequential draft, if I can get another first-rounder in there, if you would have even been able to get an unprotected one or, you know, whatever. But then at that rate, it's like, okay, well, Toronto would just be trading OG Anunoby in an attempt to draft a guy that you one day hope is as good as a guy like OG Anunoby is. You're just hustling backwards at that point. But if I'm Dallas, that's probably where I'm looking first, right? It might be the most realistic out of all the teams in the league, and they got two of them. Get on the phone, Mark. I guess this is how we can start our NBA slate today. I have no idea if this is going to be an interesting segment. Actually, the emailer also does not know, but I'm looking at some of the names that they wrote down in here, and I think we might get somewhere. So stay with me on this, okay? Nick, I don't have anything interesting to say or ask. I'm just going to rapid-fire name NBA players, and you should just give a quick take on all of them. Maybe it's not good content. I don't know. I don't know either, dude. Let's figure this out. First name, Trevor Ariza, bag getter. Bag getter. Him and Harrison Barnes, I don't know if they share an agent, but their agents have gotten them paid throughout their careers. Trevor Ariza, bag getter. Luke Babbitt, 2K legend. Huge, if you know, 2K legend Luke Babbitt when he was on the Pelicans. Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Zydrunas Ilgauskas is like the guy you mention after somebody says LeBron didn't have anybody in his first stint in Cleveland. He didn't have anybody. People go, he had Zydrunas Ilgauskas. If they were really around, they'll say he had Mo Williams. He had Shaq. He had Shannon Brown. But he had Zydrunas Ilgauskas. He's the guy who LeBron played with in his first stint in Cleveland. He will always be that guy. Spike Albrecht, for those of you who don't know, was on one of those, like the 2013 University of Michigan basketball national championship team. Sorry, national champion runner-up, but Louisville got that title vacated because Rick Pitino, the whole strip clubs and casinos thing. And so then Michigan fans were like, well, that just means we won the national championship. I think Spike Albrecht was on that team, or maybe he was on the one from a few years later. But I actually do have a Spike Albrecht story. When I was working at the Nike factory store in Howell, Michigan, when I was a kid, there was a year before I started working there, Spike Albrecht came into our store, and one of the guys that I was working with there was a huge Michigan basketball fan. So Spike Albrecht comes into the store. The guy I worked with brought over one of the basketballs that we were selling and just had him sign it, and then immediately bought the basketball. And then we had to implement a store rule after that, named after him, that we were not allowed to do that to athletes. The only ones that I dealt with were Special K came in. Greg Kelser came in. That was cool. He called me big man, and then he called me boss. That was cool in his really smooth Special K voice. Gavin Schilling and Derek Nix, if you're Michigan State basketball connoisseurs, they also came in. That was really, really cool. I think there were some other ones, but I'm blanking. Let's get back to the list. Milos Teodosic loved smoking cigarettes. That's it. He loved smoking cigarettes. Gilbert Arenas? I feel kind of bad because Gilbert Arenas is actually one of those guys that I lived through, but I just didn't he just never was a needle mover for me as a kid. So I've kind of forgotten his greatness a lot, honestly. With all I always say yeah, Gilbert Arenas was a problem. Agent Zero was a problem, but I don't really remember. I remember his NBA Live. I think we had that on PS2. There you go for Gilbert Arenas. Onyeka Okongwu fouls a lot. I'd love to look into those numbers because I bet they'd be shocking. I think he fouls a lot. Jahlil Okafor. Let's talk about Duke Jahlil Okafor for a second. You want to talk about a problem. Jahlil Okafor was the last college basketball player to make me cry when Duke beat Michigan State in the Final Four. That's the last time I cried watching. Gotta be honest here, folks. It brings me literally no pleasure at all in the world to be bringing you this next segment, but I have to. I have to be Mr. Consistent. If nothing else, do it for posterity, right? I have to let you know where each individual Piston is in their own specialized tier in my brain. I got to let you guys know there's been a lot that's been going on in Pistons land. So let's talk about it. The newest edition, without further ado, of Knicks Pistons. Now, because some of you use this show as an audio experience, as always, I will do my best to coherently and elegantly explain where each player is in their tiers. Let's explain the tiers going from the top down. So up at the top, we have my friend, followed by relevant. Next up, in the NBA, then we have a guy, and finally at the bottom, not in the NBA. So as always, let's start with who's in the bottom. The entire fucking team. You want to talk about a group of motherfuckers that are not real? These motherfuckers are not real. And if I wanted to be honest with myself about this, I shouldn't put any of the players in here. I should get a PNG of Tom Gores, of Tom Weaver, and of Monty Williams, and I should put those motherfuckers in here and not in the NBA. Those motherfuckers are not real. This team is not worth your time at all. Would not recommend. 0 out of 10. It's crazy in a week how fast I can go from pretty level-headed about the situation to dumpster fire. These guys stink. They stink. And that's what's frustrating is if you look at each individual guy, you're like, that guy doesn't stink. He doesn't stink. He does not stink. This guy, no way. This guy, Kevin Knox, he fucking stinks. But all these other guys, they don't. So what's going on? Because when Adam Silver gets up there and he tells the world who the Pistons drafted every year for the last 3 years, it ends up being someone who's pretty good. So the fish rots from the head. So which one is it? Is it Troy? Is it Tom? Is it Monty? Because at least when Dwayne Casey was here, and we didn't even have Cade for most of the time, by the way, last year. Even when Cade wasn't here, Dwayne had these guys like trying. And it's not that they're not trying. I'm not trying to be that guy. The Pistons are absolutely trying. Again, I'm not mad at the players. But there was like fight. There was something there. I didn't even get to watch the entirety of the last two Pistons games because, again, they're not worth your time. I stopped watching. For the Cavs game, it was when Max Strus threw some voodoo shit down at the rim, poster of the year. Get this shit off. I was like literally standing up to turn the game off. And right before I can even do that, Darius Garland, somehow the ball pinballs around. He has the ball in transition, and he puts up a 3, dagger. I closed the tab. I threw up. The Raptors game, I didn't make it far. Pascal Siakam brought down a rebound, took 4 dribbles across half court, kicked it out to OG Anunoby in the wing, right between the eyes. The Lord is my shepherd. I'm tired of this friggin' shit, honestly. Are we at the point where it's like, because we're not there. I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to will that into existence. I do think that people who are... just to make fun of people for a second to kind of bring myself back down to earth. I think that people who are like, Cade's going to, when he requests a trade by the end of the season, you're insane. You're insane. Cade's not going anywhere. But I'm, how bad is it going to feel? How bad is it going to feel, Pistons fans, when next summer comes around and we were told again that we were going to like do something or like spend money or like actually use this cap space and get shit popping off. And then they're like, there actually just aren't that many players. The market just is kind of like, bleh, you know. They just don't have like positional needs, you know. We don't want to get guys just for the sake of getting guys, create log jams for no reason, you know, stunt the growth of our vets. Of our young guys. At some point, it is kind of weird that the guy that you drafted in the first round a year ago can't play. Like, okay, he's like not trying on defense. You don't think he's trying on defense, Monty Williams? Okay, like that's fine. Give him a fucking chance to figure it out, man. Because you drafted him 5th overall a year ago. Maybe he's not in the plans moving forward. Like, I don't know. Again, something clearly is going on there. Have the Pistons soured on him? Again, there's a story out there where there's a version of events that maybe they don't actually care that much about him in the future, but I'm just some guy sitting in my fucking apartment. Like, I don't know. I don't know. This is what being a Pistons fan, quote unquote, does to a motherfucker. You know what I mean? Because like I said, you look at Asar Thompson, you look at Jaden Ivey, you look at Cade Cunningham, you look at Killian, if we're being for real, hasn't been a dumpster fire this year. Isaiah Stewart, there's an NBA player there. Marcus Sasser, like a top 10 rookie right now. We have good vets. Like, Bagley's not playing bad this year. I'm sorry, Jalen Duren, I just like looked at him and didn't say anything. Jalen Duren, like, what are we... How is this team how are they so bad? How are they so bad? Because it's easy to rationalize when it's injuries. It is. And it's easy to rationalize when it's like, well, they just can't get to the free throw line. If they just got somebody that like got to the free throw line. I guess, but there's also just always somebody like just reaching in and like committing a dumb foul. There's always somebody getting in foul trouble too. It's just always something, you know, it's always something. And they'll figure it out, like they will. Don't be surprised when they figure it out, because they will. In the NBA, like in sports, like it always happens. And I say that very literally, like it always happens eventually. It being arbitrarily anything. Use James Harden as a good example, and I'm pissed that I didn't like say this because when we talked about him last week, I meant to bring this up. We can shit on James Harden all that we want, okay? And it can be hilarious that he has these like historically bad stretches where he will like dust off the bottom of his shoes while he's dribbling and then step into a 29-foot air ball. It's hilarious, okay? It's capital C content. Bolded, italicized, underlined content. I'm here for the clips. That is a fucking clip. But you know what happens eventually? James Harden is going to put together a string of 4 games where he averages like 46 points. Like, he's going to do it at some point this year. I don't care if you think he's washed. Like, he's going to go on an insane streak, and we're going to have to deal with, like, ooh, James Harden narratives for, like, a fucking week. I'm just letting you know that's going to happen. The same way that the Pistons at some point this year will put together, you know, a string of games where they're not winning, like, even 6 in a row. But, like, if they win 2 or 3, I'm serious. That's all it's going to take for people. If they get to – 1 win is just going to be like a we won, thank God. 2 wins is like a, oh, wow, nice. 3 wins, people would lose their minds. Do I sound like I have, like, Stockholm Syndrome if I say I don't think we're that far away from something like that happening? Where is the players-only meeting is my question. Where the fuck is that? Where is the, and maybe it happened and we're just not privy to it. Maybe it'll come out at some point soon. Where is the players-only meeting? Doesn't that feel like the stamp of like, okay, they understand that shit is going wrong? And Cade knows that shit is going wrong. He had some great quotes last night. Let's read some of them. It's going to take me a second to pull them up here. Here we go. This is actually from James, the quote. Well, James Edwards III got the quote from Cade. We got to be realistic about the situation. It's hard to just be like, we're good. You know what I'm saying? Because we're bad. We have to address that. We have to address that what we're not good at. Address it not only with our words, but also on the court. And then also James asked Cade about the concern around the competing level tonight against Toronto. Pistons have lost 10 straight. Cade says it's unacceptable. We're the youngest team in the league, scrapping and clawing for everything. That should be the last thing that needs to be asked of us or talked about, how hard we're competing. That should be a given. When we wake up in the morning, we should be like, we got to get to the court. We shouldn't have to ask. That's something me and Stu are trying to stay vocal about. All of us have to come with it. He knows. There's pressure there. There's real pressure there. The Pistons aren't, the front office cannot afford to kick the can down the road, man. Like, the Pistons won a championship 20 years ago and have not been relevant for like 15 years. Because once we took that nosedive, we like took that nosedive hard. None of these guys are on the team this week. None of them. Backed by popular demand, Mad Online makes its return to the Coping Hour. The segment where I get upset about something that I saw online, and I spent more time thinking about it than I needed to, and I let it bother me more than it should have. This week, we have a submission from my YouTube comments. This was on a video where I said that the Zach LaVine to Detroit trade might make sense. It might make sense if you think about it. If you watch the video, it might make sense. Go back and watch it. I don't know. Comment from Love Sammy. I'll put it up on the screen. They say, no, it does not. They'd be a 3 seed at best and a second-round exit in a sweep. Pointless move. Why does this make me that mad? Because to me, this is it epitomizes Rangs culture. It epitomizes motherfuckers who do not care about basketball. It's the same guys who, there was this viral tweet the other day where it was like, we need to start talking about the fact that Jimmy Buckets is 0-2 in the finals, and whoever quote tweeted it was like, I swear to God, no, you guys don't even care about basketball. Nope. It's the point that I always try to make about like contextualizing everything, contextualizing as much information that you're receiving as you possibly can. Like when the Lions are playing the Falcons early in the season and the Falcons are 2-0 and everybody's like, oh, I don't know, Falcons sneaky competitive this year. Like Lions playing a 2-0 team, like should they be a little bit afraid? No. Because they hadn't played anybody. Their wins weren't that convincing. They kind of stumbled their way through them. Wins are wins, right? Technically. But not all wins are created equally. The same way I'm like, you know, when guys throw interceptions, sometimes I feel like we should have like 2 different interception categories. Like tipped balls and like thrown direct. Like, I don't know. Because not all interceptions are created equally. You have to contextualize those too. Someone's interception numbers might be really high, but like maybe they just get a lot of tip balls. Maybe their receivers like don't catch passes. I don't know. I make that really roundabout point just to say, like, who fucking cares? If I'm a 3rd seed, I get to the 2nd round, that's a good year. I'd like to not get swept. That's a good year. You know how many teams make it to the 2nd round every year? What, 8? 8? Right? That's not most of the teams. That's a fraction of them. All the other teams below them would be like, fuck, what would we give right now? Even if you get swept. I'd be pretty happy about that. As a fucking Pistons fan right now, if you told me that I'm going to the 2nd round this year, but you're going to get swept, I don't give a fuck. We're going to win a playoff series. We're going to win a game in the playoffs. Not just fuck the game. We're not out in 4 in the 1st. You can tell me we're out in 5. I'm ecstatic. We won a game in the playoffs. It's crazy, this championship or bust mentality that people have. People say like, oh, no, I'm just competitive. I'm just different. You're a fucking loser. You're a loser. If your bar is so high that anything but like the ultimate version of success for your basketball team is a complete failure, you're a loser. You're a loser. That's Rang's culture. That's what that is. That's like 6-0, bitch. That's what that is. That's what you sound like right now. It's so lame. It's so lame. Alrighty, this is the part of the show, folks, where I warn you, if you're only here for sports, that unfortunately you can tune out until Friday. We'll be back with a normal show. But for right now, I want to talk about Starfield. And I know that not many of you are going to care because not a lot of people are playing Starfield anymore, or really even that many when it came out. I know concurrently it did have some pretty strong numbers, and maybe it still does. I don't know. But for the most part, kind of hasn't been received really well. But I got to tell you, I want to be the change that I want to see in the world. Nobody makes Starfield content. And this isn't obviously me like really doing content for the game, but even in a positive sense, I just want to hear somebody say something nice about the game. And there hasn't really been a ton of that, which is what sucks. Because a lot of the criticism I agree with. You know, when people talk about it's frustrating to have to navigate like 6 different UIs just to get somewhere, and then you really only spend like 30 seconds there, and then you have to navigate like 4 more UIs just to like go back somewhere else. And yep, it's kind of annoying. It is kind of annoying. I wish there was a better map in the game too, like when you're on an actual planet. Like all these consistent criticisms that you hear, they're all right. They're all right. You know, the amount of time that you spend just kind of walking, knowing that there's nothing but, like, if you land on a planet, you are at point A, and you can see point B. Wherever it is, you can see point B, and you know that there is nothing in between point A and point B, but you have to walk that entire distance. Yeah, doesn't feel great. But my thing with that is people talk about, well, when I played Fallout or when I would play, you know, the Elder Scrolls, if I walk from point A to point B, there's like stuff that happens in between, you know, like out on the middle of the road or in the middle of this nuclear wasteland. And it's like, yeah, you're in space though. You're on like a moon. There's not going to be like, you know, all these thriving environments like teeming with like interaction all the time. Like space travel, probably pretty lonely most of the time. Probably not a lot going on most of the time. I'd say it's honestly sort of like a realistic simulator in that sense, and what the experience of the human condition. Not to sound like a douche, but it's true. What I would concede to that point though is it's like, okay, well, if that's going to be the case, these like super populated like hubs of civilization should be like super lively. Like New Atlantis, like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, it's cool. There's not a lot going on. Neon, unfortunately, like, cool, but not once you figure it out. Like, when you first get there and, like, you're going through a bunch of stuff, maybe you do, like, the Ryujin, like, quest line and stuff. Like, it's cool. But you get used to the game. You get used to how everything works and where everything is. And even if you do New Game Plus a few times, like, eventually you're just kind of like, there's not that much going on here. Especially, like, what a crock of shit you get sold with that penthouse in Neon. It's a horrible view. you're just looking at like a canopy of like the entire city, but like not in like a cool way, like in like a shitty way. It's dumb. But at the same time, like I can't stop playing the game. I can't stop doing it. I've clocked like at this point probably like 120 hours in like 5-6 weeks. So that first week I was treating it like a 9 to 5. It was bad. You know, the amount of hours that you can sink into like shipbuilding, it's bizarre. You know, when like really in-depth mod support comes out for the game, it's going to be a beast. It's going to be a beast, especially even like some of the Star Wars ones that are already out are like crazy, man. A lot of moments it feels like a Bethesda game. You know, a lot of it does. A lot of the dialogue is kind of weird and clunky. The companion system is like technically good, but annoying more than anything because of how hard the game tries to like make you a good guy. And I'm not saying I want to be playing Starfield so that I can like mass colonize planets and like commit genocide. Like that's not why I'm playing the game, but like don't give me the option to like be a space pirate. But all the companions that I have with me, if I do space pirate shit, are like, oh, I'm mad at you. We need to have a talk, a little chat. Bullshit. What the fuck? It's so annoying. And then you talk to them and they just yap. And you can either gaslight them and be like, I have no idea why you're mad right now. Or you can like persuade them and then manipulate them into like believing that like you didn't actually do anything wrong. It's just the same gameplay loop. It's like, why do I even have them with me? Why? They're all annoying. Mostly. I'm not even doing the marriage thing in that game because it's like all they're going to do is get mad at me when I like do stuff. Overall though, 10 out of 10. I'm playing this game forever. I'm serious. It's not Bethesda's best IP, but it is a very unique IP, and it's the IP for me. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it today for the Coping Hour. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. On Spotify, be sure to rate 5 stars. We'll be back on Friday. Might be a little bit later. I'm going to be doing some traveling, not even going home for like a full Thanksgiving, just going back to Michigan on Wednesday morning. And then Thursday, probably honestly after the Lions game, we have to come back here to Chicago. So not really even a full Thanksgiving, which stinks. So Friday should be fine, depending on like if I'm just gassed from traveling and stuff, might sleep in a little bit. But regardless, episode will still be out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for making it this far. I will catch you all
Computers now
in the
have
next
primary
one.
control.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful.